What are your priorities for BPSA?
Thanks, Lerato. Basically, I have to get into the position. However, as you've said in your introduction, transformation is my passion. So one of the things I'll be looking at are around transformatory issues. And I use transformation in a broad sense, not only in terms of race, but in terms of some of the practices that are there. So I will learn and then try and influence and work together with the CEO and the team.
Right. I think BP South Africa, other than being a major sort of petroleum retailer where we go and service our cars and get petrol, is very much under the radar. And yet the parent company has been very prominent recently for all the wrong reasons. That spillage in the Gulf of Mexico and the reputational issues that it's led to for British petroleum in general. Has South Africa been impacted by those kinds of issues, and how are you then going to raise the environmental question in the work that you do?
I think as a part of the mother company, clearly there would be an impact. I've followed the story in the Gulf of Mexico. I've read around the issues in Russia. So it's a company I've always been interested in. I believe in South Africa and across the world, they have been one of the trailblazers around environmental issues. It was very unfortunate that this thing happened. And I think they have taken a flag for it. They have tried to respond to it in a constructive way. And I believe that as a South African and in the tip of Africa, we will try to work within this context. My understanding and talking to people, there has been no direct impact on the South African market. However, one has got to be cognizant of the global brand.
Obviously, a lot of questions have been raised about South Africa's energy security, and of course right now with a stronger rand, it's been more affordable for us to import refined product into the economy. But as part of job creation, as part of just managing our resources better, there is a sense that we need to be investing aggressively in new pipelines. There's talk of one at Kucha, investing in more refining capacity, and the state often argues that in as much as it's responsible for the infrastructure, the international oil companies need to also come to the party. What do you think BP's role is in a situation like that?
I think that's the interesting part when you get into an environment or a sector that has got to look at the challenges, and you must be able to look and see how creative you can be around that. And as you say, it's been in the market, the talk around the oil sector, and I'm looking forward to participating as chairman of BP in that environment.
You know, the reason I'm asking you this is because the current CEO of BP has been quoted extensively in the media where he's very cautious about multinationals being dragged into a broader developmental agenda in that sense, saying that, for instance, supply issues must determine whether or not it's cost effective to build a refinery. So you come in with a macro perspective, and he's just looking at the balance sheet and saying some of these things don't make sense for the company. So do you think you're going to have some challenges with the CEO?
The beauty of being involved at a strategic level is to give input into those debates, is to push the envelope, is to have people thinking out of the box, as the cliche says. But I'm not managing the company. He has got to report on the bottom line. But I find that Sipho is quite an intelligent person, an exciting CEO. So I'm sure we will have a lot of debates around these issues.
Prior to your joining BP, I mean, you've had an illustrious career, but some of the things that you've done, for instance, is champion labor rights by virtue of the work you've done as the director at the CCMA. We're headed into what we call wage negotiation season, and already the political temperature is rising because inflation is rising, and people are already saying they're looking at wage increases 15% and above. We're starting to hear. How do you respond to people who say, South Africa's got a lot of potential, but the labor is a problem. The labor laws are a problem. Very empowered, politicized workers, not very productive for an economy that's in a developmental phase?
I feel blessed and privileged to have taken part in the development of the labor laws in this country and also to be part of the implementation thereof. But as you grow into an economy, there are issues you look back and you say, could we have done it differently? And it's one of those things that I look back and say, could we have? And I come back with an answer that not necessarily, because we are a constitutional democracy on the one hand, and so we've got to look at human rights of people. On the other hand, we are a developing economy, so there's always a tension. And how do we balance that? And I feel fortunate that I don't have to mediate these disputes because I'm so much in business right now. However, there is a consciousness out there in the market, and I think it's even being debated amongst the trade unions. They may not come up front. The issues of productivity, how do you separate them from issues of wages and low wages, which we know is a legacy of the past. But as far as legislation is concerned, as you know, the Labour Relations Act, there's a bill that's tabled in Parliament. So we will have to manage these processes. One eye on productivity, the other eye on the rights of the workers.
Conflict resolution is another component of the work you've done throughout your career, and you've been involved in projects dealing with post-war reconstruction in countries like Burundi and Rwanda and also Sierra Leone. Many investors very interested in Africa at the moment, very bullish about Africa, but still very concerned about the so-called political risks of doing business in Africa. When you draw from your experience, how do you see Africa today?
I'm still involved in Africa. I've got a passion for this continent. In fact, one of the NGOs I'm involved in, we've been involved in some of the work in Cote d'Ivoire and Sudan. I think this is the continent of the future. You've got more than 1 billion people, very diverse, and I would say that this is an area where you have to be strong, you have to have excitement in you to venture into it. But my view is that there's a lot of potential. There are challenges, very serious challenges, but the potential is there.
Just tell us about your experiences in countries like Cote d'Ivoire, because that's one of the more unfortunate stories. A country that had democracy, a country that was growing exponentially, and then fell apart due to political rivalries that just only got sorted out recently.
I feel very sad about what is happening there. We've been involved in the whole Mano River region, starting from Sierra Leone to Liberia. From there, we've been involved in Gabon. So Cote d'Ivoire is, and we thought that Cote d'Ivoire was quite stable in the last 15 years. And as we know, in the last 3 years, there has been these issues. The women on the ground work with us in terms of us training them on conflict resolution. In fact, about a week ago, we had a delegation which I couldn't attend due to my home commitments in South Africa. But they went there, met with the women. So we're trying to make sure that women participate in democratization processes in these countries.
Obviously, women speaks to the core function of the work that you do at Bayodona as a director there, a women's investment organization. And I know that as part of some of the transactions you do, you direct money in a very ring-fenced way towards non-profit organizations. Tell us about how you might raise the profile of women at BP, for instance.
Firstly, I've been talking to women since I was appointed, and that makes me very happy. And I would be able to engage with them. We will be able to make sure that we don't leave men behind, because I think there has to be a balance. But my view is that women are good leaders. They bring a different kind of leadership. And therefore, I'm looking forward to seeing women at BP come up to the fore.
And finally, you also sit on the board of numerous companies and also of the South African Reserve Bank. Your views on inflation targeting versus growth? What kind of debates do you have as the board there?
I'm not going to run away from this discussion. However, as you know, when you sit on boards, matters you discuss are confidential, so I'm not able to share that.
That's a cop-out.
The other thing is that maybe the public at large do not appreciate that the mandate comes from government through Treasury. So the Reserve Bank deals with that mandate in a way that has got to implement it appropriately. As non-executive directors, we are not involved in issues around inflation targeting, I must say.
Okay, thank you so much to Thandi Orleyn, who's the new chairperson of BP, will assume her responsibilities in May.